Kia ora whanau, how's it going? So Rewa Takahu here, carrying on again with our series on body, mind and spirit, and in particular the mind renewal, mind refreshing, mind reset, mind exchange. I'm carrying on with that series, but this time I would like to talk about some of the resources that I've used alongside my faith to help process things from the past, to help make sense of what's going on. And the first one is really the thumb thread for this particular session today is I had a photo of a book that I came across by an ex-soldier called Dion Jensen. The book was called The Good News About PTS. Now, I connected with this brother back in 2015 and was one of many people that proofread the book, and he asked us what we thought of it. I then actually purchased it because I found the story and the processes inside that he suggested very helpful for myself. For example, and I've left details in regards to Dion's, how you can make contact with him in the section below, where his Lion Academy and other work that he does down in the Manawatu, Palmerston North, and so you can go directly to there. But first I just want to acknowledge him and the work that he's endeavoured to do to try to help veterans out, help ex-soldiers out, ex-policemen and servicemen and women in relationship to how they've dealt with trauma through the workforce and workplace. So just to give you a bit of background, when I got back from Afghanistan in 2011, 2012, 13 and 14, I had a series, particularly 6 months after I came back through to 2012 and into 2013. I had some things that were challenging me and I was facing both in the workplace of challenging leadership, but more importantly I was facing nightmares and dreams of these were realistic dreams of where I was in Afghanistan when a soldier was killed, and then I had to go and help do the repatriation process. Now, to put that into context, it was only one soldier that died. This is from my experience of it. However, in 2010, I had conducted 10 funerals over the year, either to do with military people, ex-military people, a stepfather or adopted father had passed away, and so I'd come out of a year where my outputs were really heavy and it was all around mate and death. Without revealing too much detail, because there are family members that are related to the soldier who I know that are dear to me from the perspective of I respect them and I respect the mum and the kids and the environment in there. So I just want to talk about my experiences in that how that affected me and to what extreme it affected me, and then the likes of Dion's book and other resources that I've used to help get me into a point where I'm comfortable in my skin and I know the triggers moving forward. So this is quite a personal story around this particular trauma. What happened, without going into too much details, I got a call at 6 in the morning. The commander at the time said, "Padre, I know you've done the mortuary affairs course. Can you be prepared to go down and support our soldiers and also do the repatriation of a soldier that's been killed in Afghanistan?" was flown down by myself and a New Zealand police officer, so we were a team together. And Renewal, who is I think he still is a policeman in the Auckland branch of the service. And he and I went through the body of identification, certifying that all the medical records were there. He was ready and prepped to be returned home. Once we'd done that part, then I stepped aside and moved into my Padre role, where then we also had a service at the Mortuary Affairs building that the US had in the base at the time, and then proceeded over the next couple of days to support the soldiers who were there and or do a ramp ceremony to returning home. When I came out of Afghanistan and returned home, the first news that I got when I returned home was then another soldier had been killed, whom on the time I was at the repatriation process, he was a driver for a task that I went out on, and he and I talked a lot. And so to see the news as soon as I got off the plane that Leon had been killed in an incident, that really shook me, because in my head I was going, man, did I take the opportunities to support the brother when I was there? And the conversations that we had, so there was some internal things that I was going through and thinking about that were always playing on my mind, as you do when you're with people. For the next year, I started having dreams, and I could see in my dreams I could see and smell the places I were, the morgue, the base, the way the plane smelt. I could see the brother's eyes when I identified him, and that was probably the thing that became a lasting imprint in my dream life for about a year. I'd wake up thinking, where am I? And then I'd realise that I'm at home with my wife and my son, and it got to a point where I just didn't want to dream anymore. And to a point where actually I had considered taking my life, but it was because my wife was there, and one of the nights I was just holding my son and saying, I was thinking about things outside of myself, because I knew what I was thinking wasn't right. It was just a way of trying to get away from it. So I suppose this is one trick or process. And I knew from a faith perspective that taking my life wasn't the answer, but I started thinking about people outside of what I was experiencing. And so to be able to touch and hold them gave me a sense of something bigger than myself, to be able to go, actually, what effect would that action have on them? What would be their lasting impression to my son at that time if his dad passed away? And so I suppose there's another writer, and I was trying to find his book, and one of the things he talks about is the ability to connect in a deeper level with other people that overrides the compulsion to want to self-harm or to suicide. So that's been one tool in area. With Dion's work, I like the way he takes psychological terms and frameworks and uses military patterns that we're familiar with. So like a section or a group of soldiers that make up. So he has a gunner, he has a medic, he has a 2IC, and all these images that we're familiar with in a military perspective, but then he gives them names. So like you've got these alter egos that he talks about. The gunner, who knows how to suppress fire in a controlled manner, has the weapons capability on them to be able to deal with that first strike that comes in, or give a first strike under command. So there's a very disciplined process to that. Now the alter ego to that, in my case, is a werewolf, or in the book, but in my case I termed it as Wolverine, because for me Wolverine, it was not so much about the uncontrolled part, but my claws would come out in most cases towards my family. And I remember walking down an airport journey one time, and Caleb said, "Hey Dad, your claws are out," and I knew straight away, or I'm demonstrating the Wolverine thing for me. The medic, and there are other parts, and you have to read his work and actually talk to him, but the medic was the other side. So there was this ability about control and discipline, which the gunner and would morph into Wolverine in my case, and then I had the medic who would morph into a vampire. So the medic place in my profession as a chaplain is a caring profession, willing to sit alongside and listen and talk with people, and help out and make sure that in this case people are okay, like we were doing in Afghanistan. But the negative side of that, the alter ego of that, in my case was the vampire, and the vampire was the one that was like it was sucking life out of me. Now, up until this time, I'd been to psychologists and I'd been to counsellors, and I couldn't connect with the processes that we're talking to. So, for example, Sue Webb in the eclectic counselling material that she has, so they've got a lot of great theories, a lot of great resources there for both as a counsellor and a practitioner, and also a recipient of that, of how to either do cognitive behavioural therapy, solution-orientated therapy, and all these things that are fine from a clinical perspective, but I just couldn't connect. Whereas Dion's work, once I actually explained what I was feeling using his terminology to the counsellor, then she interpreted it for her place, and then she was able to apply work and all theories that would help what I was going through. So it was good to have something from Dion, for example, that was helpful. And I use that quite often. I'll be thinking about, is this the gunner or Wolverine? Is this the medic, or is it morphing into the vampire? Now, the vampire part for me is that I feel like my life's getting sucked out of me, and I'm getting drained, and I'm feeling depressive. And so I now understand the transitions that happen to that. And so if I find myself that I'm hungry, tired, or alone, then I need to do things to either mitigate those areas or extract myself out and RV somewhere where I'm not hungry, tired, or alone. It could be just one of those things. And so I know, I've come to understand in my own makeup and way I worked, that I'm more susceptible to triggers, or as Ephesians 6 talks about, the evil one puts out snares to try to devour us. And so if I put myself in a situation where I'm susceptible to those things, I'm in danger of falling into bad habits, or Wolverine or the vampire comes out. And so one of those things is I develop connecting. Joseph and I talk a bit around things, and so we may have a conversation. I might say to him, I'm feeling like the vampire's starting to come up a bit, and so we'll do things to deconflict that. So too with the Wolverine, my sons and Joseph are quite happy to mention, is that Wolverine coming out of you a little bit? And so then we just go, I have to take the check and go, what's going on? What's around me that's making these things happen? Another resource that I've used for personally and over the years is Combat Trauma, the Manual to Healing for veterans. It's a US-based program for the military over there, but we've used it a little bit here in New Zealand with the Defence Force. And This one particular I've enjoyed because it looks at both things from both a Christian framework and also a medical practitioner framework. So I've found this helpful in regards to understanding trauma, the process of grief, and how I might work through it. The ability to recreate and re-identify our identity, because I think sometimes in military life you get so involved with it that you lose your identity on who you are and what you're about and so forth. How do I do things moving forward? So for a period of time, I went to a counsellor, and as I said, I didn't really connect through that process. And as I mentioned, Dion's work, the good news about post-traumatic stress or PTSD, I found helpful in regards to using language that helped me explain what I was thinking of to the counsellor. So I probably went to the counsellor after that for about another 8 months. And we just walked through things and talked through things until at such point I had developed my toolkit, or I had my webbing on, in the sense of webbing where I had bandages and ammo and things in there that I could use to help me deal with the triggers that were coming up. So as I mentioned, 3 that I identify: hungry, tired, or alone. And sometimes I put myself in those positions. Sometimes I'm overworked and I find myself in those positions. Other times it's out of my stubbornness. I'm stubborn, and so I'm so stubborn I get to a point where I go, hang on a minute, I'm alone, tired, and hungry. How did I get here? Pardon me. And so I have to either extract myself out of that, because I know I'm going to go tip over the edge. I'm also aware a fourth one for me is time in relationship to the linear calendar. August is not a good month for me historically, and that's partly because in our New Zealand context, all of our KIAs and deaths that we've had in the military context has been in August. And so leading up to August, go through August and the end of August, I'm acutely aware of the season that we're in. And particularly some of the stuff that will pop up in the media, whether it's Facebook, TikTok and emails and so forth. There are some people that will just throw things up without realising that it could be a trigger for someone else. So what do I do? Let's take an experience that I had just recently. Is I was out on a farm here in Kaikohe, and we were home killing a sheep ready for our freezer, and the farmer shot it. We went up to help him skin it and so forth, and as he turned the head around, I saw the sheep's eyes, and I had a flashback. Now, because I knew I had understood what was going on internally, I then verbalised that very quickly, and it de-escalated the feelings that were going inside. So I knew I couldn't trust my feelings, because our feelings betray us. They're not reliable. So I just said to Joshua and the Gordon who was there, said, "Oh, I've just had a flashback to 10 years ago in Afghanistan," and then I just explained to them the process, and that was enough just to de-escalate that emotive feeling that was going on inside, to a point where it's like, oh yeah, that's managed again. Interesting to note that once I'd understood the 4 kind of phases that would move me over into negativity, my dreams changed. I used to dream a lot when I was younger, and I think that's one way that God speaks to us, and I'm going to do a series on dreaming and dream interpretation. I'll be following a number of people over a number of years around this gift, and I've been exercising that amongst whanau down in the Manawatu and up here, in regards to interpreting their dreams. But my dreams have been changed. My dreams have changed into more positive ones. And yeah, it's a real relief that my night seasons are actually cool at the moment. The other one I have alongside that is to talk to people. So in doing so, you've got to build trust relationships. And so there are some people who I call now that we've made an agreement to each other as like combat buddies. Is that if any one of us are in a situation where we're finding that we're going down a hole and it's hard to get out of, or it's August, we ring each other up. And we will intentionally ask the questions: how are you going? How's your post-traumatic stress? What level you're at? Between 1 and 10, where you sitting at? 10 being it's a really, really bad day. 1 being it's fine. Where are you in that gauge? And so I've got a couple of people that I'll call, and Dion's one of them. If I need to, I might just say to him, hey man, I've had a stink day, and he'll give me a ring. And it's interesting, he rang me up a couple of weeks back just at the right time. I didn't know it, but afterwards I thought, I needed that call. So find a combat buddy or find someone you can connect with that you don't have to do all the preamble, and just let them know, hey, this is what's going on. Let's have a chat. And it's, could go down for a cup of tea at a cafe or something, or in most cases, the people I've connected to are now another part of the country, so we'll talk over the phone about things. If you can and are able, find people in your whanau that you can talk about, so that at least it makes sense with them. They may not necessarily understand what's going on, and then it also may help explain what's been going on if you explain these things to them. Then you've got a wider support network. So I suppose if I'm thinking about throwing a stone into water, and you see the ripple effects, if you think about yourself as the initial ripple, and those close relationships and people that you want to bring in that you can use as combat buddies to say, okay, here's how we'll deal with this, as kind of like that first response space, either your family members or having someone that you go, hey bro, I'm having a rough day, I'm okay, but can we just have a chat? Then you've got wider spheres. So in my case, it could be the church community, it could be a men's group, it could be a formal organisation, like there are counselling services out there you could call up. The mental health line in regards to what the hospitals and health department do. NZDF have a 0800 number for folk that are needing help. You can ring up the helpline there, or the RSAs. You can make contact with them and find out information in the New Zealand context of where you can do it. You've got Dion Jensen's doing stuff in regards to Lion Academy. You've got No Duff that's available. It's an online. I think they're still going. I haven't really seen much of theirs recently, but Mr. Wood he's worked with that in the past, and so they do emergency like a first responder type of process. We can get veterans to help each other out. Lastly, the other thing that I did when I moved from RF to reserve capability this year, I actually went home and did a tohi. Now, a tohi is a baptism. I went back onto our land and I had my family there, and I asked them to pray for me, and then I basically went down into our bay areas over on the land, and Mātua block is called Waiatua. And effectively I baptised myself, or they baptised me. And now it's not that I need baptism in regards to salvation, but this was a baptism where I was asking the Lord to say, Lord, the things that I've dealt with and worked with over the past period of time, and in this case the military space, the last 15 years, I'm getting submerged into this water, symbolic of cleansing, and coming out and letting all that stuff die or be left in the water. It's one of those images of baptism. There are, when the 28th Māori Battalion came home, Colonel Peter Awatere did a number of things when he did kawe mate, and prayed for soldiers, and there were Māori things, pure, and tuhia, all these activities that they would do to bring our soldiers back. And we've kind of lost that in our modern form of things. Everything's very clinical, and we don't go through the processes of dealing with the heart and the mind and the soul in a way that actually is culturally appropriate. So, family in the morning, and this was actually happened in Waitangi this year, that weekend. We went down, I knelt in the water, I had a karakia, gave thanks for all the people I've met through my military space. Still pining to be there, but I released it all, and then I went down into the water and I came back up. And I felt something physically leave me. There was a physical exchange and release by doing a ceremony of cleansing, using water in the sense of baptism. And I think part of the process moving forward is it's not my job or my wife's job or my son's job to change me, but we can make an exchange. And what is the exchange that we're wanting? In this case, I was saying I would like peace, and the exchange that I'm seeking for is I surrender. I surrender all those aspirations, I surrender all those pains, I surrender all those visions, I surrender all those things that were pertaining to that time and period, and I let it die in the water. And the water symbolically is a cleansing. At the same time, I asked the Lord Jesus, I said, Father, let your Son's blood cleanse me again. Let the blood of Jesus speak greater things over me than the blood of Abel. And in doing so, the water became symbolic of that washing and that renewal. Anyway, whanau, that's a little bit about my story and some of the things that I use. I am a faith man, I am a Jesus freak, and I've seen God do miraculous things with soldiers and people that I've prayed for and places. But I also am realistic. Sometimes we do need help through friends, your combat buddies, through professionals like counsellors and social workers and those in the medical sphere. And sometimes we need a bridge. You know, we need someone to be able to help us, give us the language so that we can speak to them in a way that makes sense for us, but it also helps them then, like Dion's work. So firstly, I want to say a big shout out to Dion and the Lion Academy and the mahi he's doing. Keep up the good work, brother. I want to shout out to the brothers out there that call me and I call them. Thank you for your service. Thank you for the phone calls and even the weird times I do call, and vice versa. You're all around the country, and so and to those that are currently serving, that I have served with, it's been a privilege serving with you. And I pray that the Lord's blessing will continue to be on you as you serve our nation in the different capacities that you do. And in particular at this time with the COVID and security around all that, and the quarantine facilities, and those that do the planning behind it, well done, keep up the good work. And anyway, whanau, if this has been helpful, please like, subscribe, and share it. This is just an experience of what I've been through, and Lord bless you and keep you. May His face continue to shine upon you, whoever you are and wherever you are. The one who made you knows how you're wired and is able to help you. God bless.